Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scourge of War Waterloo, episode 22, and the opening of the core series. For those of you who have been following my series and played all the brigade scenarios and all the division scenarios, you should now be able field commanders and ready to take the next step into Corps Command. Core Command core scenarios in this game are some of the most varied and exciting scenarios in the game. Core scenarios can be as small as 2 divisions or as large as 4 or 5 divisions. So there's really a variation in terms of the amount of troops you're going to be handling per scenario. Unlike in the division scenarios where generally speaking, a division was 2 brigades and an 8-gun artillery battery, with the exception of a couple of scenarios, and the final one, Napoleon's finale, being the biggest at 4 brigades. Brigade series are obviously all just 1 brigade; they're all the same. So yeah, in this series, we're going to start to see some variations in the size of the forces that we're commanding. Before we get going here, I just want to briefly thank everyone that has been posting comments on the videos. I've received a number of comments from people telling me that this series is really helping them learn the game and that they're learning a lot from it. And that's great for me to hear because it's exactly why I started making this series, was to help new players get a grasp on the game and kind of grow with it and learn its mechanics. So everyone that is getting something from it, I'm very happy that you guys are digging the series, and it gives me the motivation to keep going with it. So let's start the video here, and let's take a look at what we will be doing today. So today we are going to be taking a look at the Prussian Corps scenario, Saint Armand. The reason I chose this scenario is I think it's a good introduction to Corps Command. While it ends up being a kind of a mid-level scenario by the end in terms of how many troops you're going to be handling, it isn't super huge, but it's going to end up being bigger than anything you've commanded so far. It doesn't start out that way. You start out with just a couple of battalions, like maybe 4 or 5, like a brigade scenario. And over the course of the scenario, more and more troops get released to you. So you're not just kind of hit in the face with, a huge corps to command. Troops are gradually released to you over time, in order to kind of simulate how the kind of western part of the Battle of Ligny kind of unfolded, where General Van Damme on the French side launched a series of attacks against Saint Armand la Haye, up through Wagnally, with his, something like 5 division corps. So the attack will start off kind of centered around Saint Armand and then slowly proliferate northward. And as the scenario goes on and proliferates, more and more troops will get released to us. So the battle will get bigger and bigger and bigger. This is a long scenario. It is 2 hours long, but I still feel it's the best introductory scenario. And there's never a dull moment. It's an exciting scenario kind of all the way to the end because of the kind of staggered nature of the release of the troops. All right, so let's take a look at what's going on here. So we're commanding the Prussian First Corps. And the time is 2:30 p.m., June 16th, 1815, which is pretty much the beginning of the Battle of Ligne. And the situation is General Lord Wellington assured us during our morning meeting to join us today with his army on the Sombref area. His Excellency Field Marshal Blucher promised to engage and hold the French army here for the time necessary. Your corps is in the front line. It is important to hold the line of the river Ligne. In order to do this, you have to defend the villages and buildings on the left bank of the river. The French army must not break our right. We risk to be separated from the Dutch-British army. And the mission is to defend the village of Saint Armand from the French assault. And the way we're going to do this is by really being a pain in the butt, really being a bunch of pests, kind of similar to what you guys saw me do in episode 13, Le Grand Pont, but it's going to be on a much grander scale. So here's a map. Van Damme's forces are kind of lined up from here, and they're kind of circling Saint Armand and Saint Armand la Haye. And he's got about, like I said, 5 divisions, and he's going to send them to us starting from the south, kind of one at a time. This one's going to come forward, and this one, there's another one here, another one here, and then this one. And we have a couple of forces in Saint Armand and a little bit in Saint Armand la Haye at the beginning. But most of our forces are held in reserve back behind the villages. And these are the forces that are going to get released to us as the scenario goes on. So as you see, we command part of the Prussian First Corps and basically the 1st Brigade and the 2nd Brigade and part of the 3rd Brigade. We need 6,000 points for a major victory. And you guys, as always, can read the biography if you wish. You just pause the video. All right, so let's get this thing going. Alrighty, and here is our corps commander, von Ziethen. We have 24,000 men under our command, though, as I said, not all of them are released to us at once. And here comes our little courier. And it says, General von Ziethen, your brave men delayed the French army during all the day of June 15th. Now they're called to hold the line of the river Ligne until the British army will join us. Hold the outpost in the village of Saint Armand against the French attack. In the village itself, you have some battalions of the 3rd Brigade, and the 1st and 2nd Brigade are in reserve behind the river. And that is from Blücher, the commander of the army. So let's scroll forward here and go towards Saint Armand. And we're just going to bring our corps commander kind of right up by the objective here, just to keep all our points kind of close by. And the first thing you're going to see is a full battalion of 700 men in the church. We want to get them out of there. You do not need to put an entire battalion in the church. You only need to cover the church with a couple of hundred men. You need your battalions because we really don't have a lot of troops at the beginning here. You can see there's just a couple of scattered troops. Battalions in the village, and we're going to move most of them over by the church. The church is going to become kind of the linchpin of our defense, and in case I didn't mention it, this is a purely defensive scenario here. In most instances, we're going to be outnumbered at all times, and we're just going to be as pesky and annoying as we possibly can. The name of the game here is delay, 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 stall, stall, run the clock down, whatever we can do to waste time, because we already have the objectives. So as long as we can hold on to them, we're going to be getting points. So we want to delay the confrontation with the French as long as we possibly can. And I'm going to tell you some ultra BS on how we're going to do that. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is... Now, I should say, I played the scenario many times. I know where the attacks are coming from. I know how the divisions approach, all the stuff that I've seen before. So in some ways, there's a certain amount of repetition here in that I already know what's going to happen and what order it's going to happen in. So I know the 1st Division that's coming forth from Van Damme's corps is Lafol's division, and he's coming up that road just across the bridge that I just showed you, and we'll get back to that in a minute. Just preparation for later in the battle. I'm going to move this tiny regiment consisting of 2 battalions, and I'm just going to have them occupy this little farmhouse over here. And really, I'm just doing this now so I don't have to worry about it later. And again, I'm just positioning troops here because I know that later on in the scenario, an objective is going to be here, and I'm positioning my troops just to be there to occupy it, kind of right off the bat. That's all I'm doing here, just preparing for the future of the battle here. And then we will head back over here and continue on with setting up our defense of Saint Armand. So you notice I have pushed some skirmishers really far out because I know that Lafol's division is going to lead with its artillery. Now, as I mentioned in some previous scenarios, and I'm sure I mentioned in the Grog Toolbar Demystified series, probably in the artillery episode, artillery cannot unlimber in range of small arms fire. So what I'm doing is sending skirmishers way out ahead of my lines to turn the French artillery around. As soon as they come into range of the skirmishers, they will turn around. And this is going to keep, there they go. You can see on the left side of the screen there, the French artillery is retreating. And we're doing that to turn them around so they won't be a factor in the battle. And this is important to do because if you don't, that French artillery is going to come a lot closer. They'll set up kind of right here if you don't interfere with them. And that's really close to all our troops. So it's very important to send these skirmishers out and actually turn the French artillery around and make it so that they cannot unlimber anywhere near you. That's ultimately what you want to do. And meanwhile, what we're doing is setting up a skirmish line to stall this huge French division that's coming down on us. We need to delay them while we set up more of a defense inside the town. So these guys, you see I have them falling back already, and I'm going to set up a skirmisher line kind of in here, in these hedgerows, and just to delay them, stall them, force them to go online and deploy. The name of the game here is to make the French pay for every tree, every step, every blade of grass that they want to, while they're trying to advance, and just really stall them out. And that's why I say we're trying to be a bunch of pain in the butts here, while we set up more of a defense of Saint Armand. Now, we don't really have much in the way of troops at the moment. Like I said, just a couple of battalions. So we're going to be using the buildings. The church, like I said, is going to be the linchpin of our defense. We're going to put a couple of hundred men in there and defend its flanks to avoid the church being surrounded by all sides. As I've mentioned in previous scenarios, you have a better chance of driving forces out of fortified positions if you can surround it on more than one side. And that's kind of what we're going to prevent the French from doing, and really make that corner of the village kind of the linchpin of our defense. In the meanwhile, as I'm backing up here, you'll notice I'm deploying my skirmishers in hedgerows, anything to give me an advantage, the defensive terrain bonus. I've got my other skirmishers over here, all set up in hedgerows, and this isn't going to hold. This is just a line to force the French to deploy and go online much further back than they want to. Because as you can see, we really don't have much under our command at the moment. Most of these troops are not, anything behind the river pretty much is not under our command. So really all we have is like 2 battalions in here. And there's one coming up by that I brought up by the river. But really just 3 battalions to start off with here. And we're going to have to use a lot of skirmishers to really just be pesky. And like I said, similar to what I did in episode 13's Le Grand Pont, where we use skirmishers to completely stop a French division. So we're going to kind of be pulling the same trick here. You'll notice the French have started to deploy into line. We've kind of stopped them in their tracks for now. It's not going to last, but it's just to stall for time. That's pretty much all this is about right now. We're stalling for time. So we've seen this a million times, haven't we? So here comes a column. They're looking to charge and get these skirmishers out of here. That's fine. Anything that makes them waste their fatigue or whatever is cool by me. We're just going to pull back, find another hedgerow to set up in, and again, make them pay for every step, every blade of grass. Delay, delay, delay. Just run the clock down, stall as much as we can. Because all the while here, we have this objective that we're earning points from. And I think this is a long objective, meaning you get something like 200 or 300 points, but I think you have to hold it for 5 minutes each time. So it's a hold objective, but it has a long rotation. You have to possess it for, I think it's 5 minutes. It might be as long as 9 minutes. I'm not sure. I always forget to look at that stuff because I just say I'm going to hold it the whole time. Okay, so now we have the church. We kind of have our flanks protected. We're going to move this battalion to kind of be on the church's flank, and we got our battalions inside the church now. A couple of hundred men. They're in a good spot. And we're just going to keep slowing the French down with our skirmishers here. So again, we've withdrawn to the next hedgerow. And I'm just keeping an eye on these skirmishers, seeing how they're doing. They're all doing pretty damn good so far. Like I said, they're getting the defensive terrain bonus because they're hiding in the hedgerows. And skirmishers in general do not take casualties the way a normal line unit would, as I've mentioned many times. So they're real pesky. You know, if you want them out of there, you pretty much have to charge them. So as you can see, completely stopped their advance. My bad on this. I actually wasn't sure if I was recording, so I needed to double check. It's a 2-hour scenario. I'd rather have a little cut in here where I check to make sure I was recording than play the whole thing and find out I didn't press the record button like an idiot. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I actually was recording the playthrough. So yeah, we've completely stopped this French advance in their tracks. We're in a decent spot right now. It's not going to last. We're going to have to start pulling back as we get more and more outnumbered and they get closer. You can see some troops over here are moving out past our right flank. So this is not going to hold for long. But you know, every minute we hold them back is you know, another minute closer to the end of the scenario. So this is much better going out to meet them in this area here than it is to just kind of hold up in Saint Armand and wait for them to approach. So they tried to charge our skirmishers across the river, but the river really slowed them down and gave us plenty of time to pull our troops back. As you can see, there's all these troops in the back there. They're going to be coming forward later on. The scenario does get pretty big. So this is the battalion I brought over that was kind of back behind the river. It's the only battalion behind the river that we actually control from the start of the scenario. So that's what gives us 3 battalions to work with here against an entire division. But like I said, we have the advantage of the town and being able to control the church. So that's a big advantage. And like I said, every minute we stall these French here is another minute closer to the end of the scenario. So it's all about just delaying and stalling and running the clock down and wasting time. And skirmishers are really, really good at that. So we're almost 10 minutes into the scenario and the French have barely crossed the river. And I'm going to start developing the skirmisher line a little bit more. And I'm looking for the charge here. Here it comes. And we're just going to pull these guys back. And I'm going to run some skirmishers out and put them in the woods here. And look at these killers over here in the hedgerows here. They are really doing a bang-up job at holding this French battalion back. So again, we're just retreating, bringing the skirmisher line further back. Every time they push us back, we stop and set up again, and again they have to deploy and deal with us. And all of this wastes time, and that's the whole name of the game here, is wasting time. And in the woods here, like I said, we're going to set up a little bit of a secondary line. As the line gets pushed back, they'll have to deal with fresh skirmishers. And these guys are still hanging out up here because they're holding these guys at bay. So as long as they're doing good, I'm going to leave them there. And we're going to start to fill in the skirmisher line from here to here, and really make them pay to get across this river and this bridge. So here they come again in the same old way. 2 columns now. And again, when they get too close, we will just retreat. Here they come. Back we go. They waste a charge. That's what it's all about. You get nothing for it. They'll stop to form line, or they'll charge the other skirmish unit, and we'll have them pull back. And here they come. And here we go. You know, but again, we're making them waste charges. We're making them, you know, use their fatigue. We're, you know, basically wasting their, you know, troop strength on little skirmisher units. You know, obviously this is a huge French division. If they're determined to push us back, and all we are is skirmishers, there's really nothing we can do about it. But we can sure make a real pain in the butt of ourselves, and that's kind of what we're going for here. All right, so the French are now in range to engage the troops in the church, but they're only going to be able to bring fire against one side of it for quite a while here. And it's a good defensive position. It's similar to the church at Place Noir or Hougoumont, or kind of any kind of fortified position like that. So look at these killers, these absolute killers in the hedgerows over there. They are now holding up 3 French battalions with only less than 100 men. I love it. So we've got a bunch of skirmishers in there and a Jaeger unit. So the church is in pretty good shape for now. I'm going to turn these guys to shoot into the flank of the unit that is shooting at the church there. Flank fire never hurts. Because that on the far left, our far left there, that one skirmisher unit in the hedgerows over there is doing such a bang-up job holding all these French units at bay here. Look at this. These guys are killers right here, holding all these French units at bay. So we can turn our attention and start shooting into these guys' flanks and so forth. And there is a pretty wide radius on this objective. It's like 200 yards, so you don't have to kind of hoard all your troops around the objective. They can be out pretty far from it. Unfortunately, that also makes it easier to be contested because the French don't have to get as close to it to contest it. But initially, it means we don't have to keep all our troops by the objective to acquire points from it, to occupy it, because it has a pretty wide radius. And we end up holding this one for the majority of the scenario. Later on, the French do get close enough to contest it, but by then we've racked up so many points that it's like, doesn't matter. And as I said, another objective will appear later on at St. Armand la Haye. So I'm going to set these guys up in line, and this is starting to prepare for the second part of the attack from Van Damme's corps. Again, I already know when it happens, you know, where they come from, and all that, because I've played the scenario many times before. So in many ways, I'm able to prepare for what's to come because I already know what's to come. So we're doing a bang-up job here at holding these forces at bay. I'm waiting for this artillery battery to get released to us. Still pretty early, nothing's been released to us yet. But all these troops back there will eventually get released to us. So we've got some skirmishers in the woods now. Got a nice little skirmisher line going on here. And again, this is very similar to what I did in Le Grand Pont, where we're just using skirmishers to really slow down the French advance here. They're not anywhere near as passive as they were in the playthrough I did of Le Grand Pont. You know, they really make a good go for it in this playthrough. I'm going to kick out one more skirmisher group here, and I think I'm going to place them kind of right in here, just to kind of link up the rest of the skirmish line, with the church kind of being the center of it. So we've driven some French back, and now the other two French battalions are advancing. And they're going to set up in line 2, and we'll just continue the game here. And these guys are doing a great job holding up our left here. I love it. So the French have sent out some skirmishers of their own here to tangle with our skirmishers, and that's a smart move. They should do a lot more of that, in all honesty. But like I said, like I've said many times before, the AI does not abuse skirmishers the way I do, and it never will. It never does. But once in a while, they'll kick one out, and it helps them here, but only marginally. So let's link up the rest of the skirmisher line here. Just keeping tabs on everyone, making sure everyone's doing good. Alright, so I'm going to start splitting off two skirmisher units here, and I'm going to send them very far forward of the lines. And this is in anticipation of the 2nd Division that's going to later on move forward. And we're going to pull the same trick. We're going to use the skirmishers to turn their artillery around so they can't get it close to us. And I'm just putting them out there in the hedgerows to prepare for that. As always, wait for the skirmishers to start moving so that the toolbar flips, so that you'll be able to recall them later. After they start moving, you can take command of them. This may have been a visit to the fridge. Alright, so the French are now starting to try to move some troops forward and cross the bridge and get across the river here. We're going to turn our skirmisher unit. It's been fun firing into these guys' flank, but we're going to face the more important target here. The guys in the church can handle the unit right in front of them. They open with a volley there. Doesn't have the same effect on skirmishers that it would on a line unit. So these guys in the hedgerows, they're getting kind of tired. They've been at it for a while, but as long as they're going to hold, let's let them keep holding. We'll split out some more skirmishers. And that's really what these battalions back behind the church are for. Just to kick out more skirmishers. And that other unit routed. Don't know where they routed to, but they definitely ran off. They ran off very quickly. I'm looking for them, but I don't see them. I don't know where the heck they ran off to, but they ran like the Flash. Off they go. So we're going to replace them with some new skirmishers. And I do a lot of that in this scenario, where, you know, as skirmishers break and run, as they get tired, as they're just had enough of fighting for the day, I'll just kick out new skirmishers to replace them. Continually make pain in the butt of ourselves. So we've wrapped up about 2 French battalions over here, just kind of stuck in here, dealing with our skirmishers. And while I like being in the hedgerows, it does offer a good defensive terrain bonus. I'm very soon going to start to pull those guys back because they are a little close for comfort to those French battalions. So I've moved my skirmishers up, and they're just there to they're just there kind of in their starting position when the next division moves in. And we're going to split up again. I'm just looking ahead because things are pretty stable at St. Armand right now. So I'm setting up for later parts of the battle. You do not have to do this right away. I'm just doing it because the situation at St. Armand is pretty stable right now, and I have the time to do it. But this doesn't have to be done right now. Whenever you get a stable situation in your playthrough where you got a few minutes to look away and not pay attention, you want to send some skirmishers forward to do basically the same thing. When another division advances down that area, we're going to turn their artillery around. And by doing this, every time a new French division comes forward and turning their artillery around, it goes a long, long way to really neuter the effect of the French guns, while we're going to be later on bringing our guns forward and really be able to put them to use. Generally speaking, once you turn the French guns around and they set up somewhere else, they don't ever then make an attempt to move forward once they set up. So you pretty much can turn them around, and where they set up after they turn around will pretty much be where they stay. Again, that's one of the great benefits of being able to turn artillery around with nothing but a skirmisher unit. And that just has to do with the way the French divisions are set up. If you guys remember when I was using the Eagle Triumphs in the Grog Toolbar Demystified series, when I would scroll through, the various divisions of Van Damme's corps, you saw the guns were all out front. So their deployment is the same in this scenario. So when they come forward, they all lead with their artillery instead of putting skirmishers or even infantry out front. So it's just a very easy way for us to send skirmishers forward to turn their guns around and basically remove the French artillery from being an important part of this battle. So we have really stopped these guys up here. Our skirmisher line is holding them at the bay. They're nowhere near the objective. They haven't even breached St. Armand. We've got that's 200 points, and I think it's every 5 minutes. So it doesn't add up a lot at first, but once the other objective appears, you start racking up points. And again, it's a 2-hour scenario, so we really have a long time to get to where we need to get to, which is 6,000 points for a major victory. And I'm just bringing Jagao here, who is the brigade commander for most of the troops in the village and some of the troops set up behind the river there, and I'm just bringing him forward in case we need a commander. I'm just checking these guys and just making sure they're not getting hit. But those hedgerows seem like a good place for them. They still have not made it across that bridge. So one of our skirmisher units has routed, as you can see. The French skirmishers have caused them to run off. They still got the better of it. They have a better score. But they were in it. They were in the fight for quite a while, so they're starting to run off. But they held up that French left wing for quite a long time. And we still have a skirmisher unit in the woods here. And even when they start to come through St. Armand, the church really acts as a barrier, because once they enter engage distance of the church, they pretty much have to stop and engage the church. So it is tough to get by that. So another skirmisher unit running off, and this will happen throughout the scenario. You know, just be prepared to kick out new ones. So we're starting to pull our left back a little bit. There are a lot of French troops out there, and the skirmishers will only take the abuse for so long before they're like, yeah, we've had enough of this, and they run off. We're going to kick out another skirmisher group here. Again, I'm just going to wait for them to move before I take charge of them. And I'm just going to put them out here to kind of replace the skirmisher unit that ran off. These guys are getting tired, but as long as they're going to stand there, they're getting the better of it still. I'll let them stay there. You know, a lot of skirmisher units like this, you know, it's only 60 men at this point. You know, I'll let them stay there until they're going to rout. Every second they hold up the French is a good second. And I'm backing this unit off on the far left here. And even though they don't have the defensive terrain bonus anymore, because now they're out in the open, as I said, there's a certain sweet spot with skirmishers where you kind of don't want them too close to infantry. Even if they're in a defensive terrain situation where they're getting a bonus, it's just they tend to take more casualties if they're too close to line units, because they're kind of in the prime weapon range at that point. You know, if you're 50 yards or under, you know, is kind of the prime range of the Chareloi there. So by backing them off, we make it harder to hit them. So we've split off a lot of skirmish units. We only have about 3 more that we can split off from these units behind the church before they can't split off anymore. So it's getting down to slim pickings here. And here I'm just going to just check it on my skirmishers and make sure they're kind of placed where I want them to be. Move them up a little bit ahead. Actually, it's probably better to keep them in the woods. I think I'd end up changing my mind and keeping them in the woods. Yep, better in the woods. We'll move them forward later on, but they don't need to be any more exposed right now. And we got an artillery battery over here that is actually under our command. And we're going to actually bring them all the way over here and kind of set them up right along this road. And again, I'm just preparing for a later part in the battle. And it's going to serve us very well to have these guns here. It's a nice big 8-gun artillery battery. And let's check on St. Armand, see how things are going over here. Still pretty stable. My skirmishers have gotten run off. Don't know where they went. But the French have finally captured the woods there on the outskirts of town. Good for them. You know, took them long enough. All right, the French are attacking in force in positions near St. Armand. My bad. Missed it. But anyway, some troops just got released to us. You can see You can see the artillery coming forward, and I'm going to send these skirmishers out to meet them and turn them around. And I'm sending one skirmisher unit to get this battery, and I'll send one skirmisher unit to get this battery. And we're just going to flip them right around. Say, bye guys, you don't want none of this. And now one of our regiments has been released, as well as this little small regiment right here. We're going to bring them forward because they'll end up being good troops to use for skirmishers. Basically what that message was, and I didn't pause the game in time, was just telling us the French have launched a new division. Oh, there's those skirmishers that routed. Okay, finally found them. Are bringing a new division forward, and you know, one of our regiments has been released as well. And we're going to set them up along this road here. In line. We're not doing any charging here. We're purely defensive, so we're going to set them up in line along the road and proliferate our line northward. And we have plenty of time to do this because our skirmishers are going to turn the artillery around and delay the infantry. And this is a little small unit here, and I'm actually going to detach them and bring them over by the church because small units are good for the church. So one of our skirmishers has been charged and is pulling back. So the French are they've now made it across the river. They have the bridge. So we're going to start pulling our line back. We're still going to try and hold them up, but they are now across the river in force. And you know, they're going to make sure they get our skirmishers out of there. So we just recalled this skirmisher unit. Let's bring them back to the line unit. Making sure, always check on the church every once in a while. Just make sure you know, all your units are holding up well in there. Eventually, some units will start to rout away from the church, and you should have to kick out some more skirmishers to replace them. It's just something to keep an eye on. Just every so often, give the church a check-see, and make sure your boys are doing okay in there. So our left is really being pressured now. We're pulling all our skirmishers back. But we're making the French waste some charges to do it. So like I said, they're paying for every tree, every blade of grass, every foot, every step they take. We're making them pay for it. In the meantime, I think I'm going to start shifting some troops over to the left side because it's pretty thinly defended at the moment here. And they're really starting to stack up on our left flank. We've only got a 300-man battalion over here to face all these troops coming on. And our guns are released. That's going to help. So we're going to bring some guns up. We're not going to bring them too close yet because we can't really protect them yet. But we'll get them close enough to start hitting the French. I'm going to bring this battalion over to help them out here. They're really starting to put some pressure on our left now. And here come the guns. And that's a nice big 8-gun artillery battery. That's really going to help us out. And here comes some more French from the north, but they're going to have to stop and engage the church. This is why I say the church is kind of the linchpin of your defense, because they're going to be coming in kind of from the south and southwest, and that church really does a great job of stopping them up. All right, so the skirmishers here, all these two little skirmisher units have forced an entire division to go online. So they're getting pounded now. So they've done their job. The artillery is way back there now, and we're going to just bring these guys and get them out of harm's way. And normally this division will just kind of start advancing as soon as you pull the skirmishers back. But in this playthrough, they didn't. They stood there for a while, and they kind of tricked me because they stood there for so long. I thought, well, maybe they're not coming. Maybe they, maybe this is just something new that I've seen in this scenario, and they're not going to come. And I actually weakened my center to strengthen my right later on, and then they start to come forward, and I kind of quickly have to re-strengthen my center as they approach. So it was an interesting strategy that I hadn't seen the French use yet in this scenario. Normally they just kind of proliferate straight north from, with each division going into action as they get released. It may have been that I ran so far out there and forced the entire division to deploy that they just kind of were in a defensive mindset for a while. I'm not really sure. I haven't seen that before. But like I said, it threw me for a loop because they stood there for a long enough time that I actually began to believe they weren't going to get involved. And I started weakening my center to strengthen my right later on. And then they came forward, and as you'll see later on, that makes for some hairy moments. So we've got the left situation stabilized for the moment. We've pushed the troops back, just checking on the church. Again, they're getting tired, but they're still doing really good. And I'm just checking all the battalions. They're all getting kind of tired, but they're doing pretty good. And like I said, that's a pretty good position. They'll hold that for quite a while before units start running out of there. All right, so we're gonna move the guns a little further forward now that our right is not being pressed quite as hard as it was a few minutes ago. And once we really get a hold on the right, on our left, I'm sorry. Once we really get a hold on our left, then we'll actually cross the river with the guns, when we'll be able to start putting canister fire into French units that get too close. And we have another artillery battery released. I'm still like, wow, this division is not moving. We're going to pull these skirmisher units back into the hedgerows. They stopped an entire division in their tracks. They got pounded for it, but with only 200 men, they literally got an entire division to stop way short of where they should have and go online. And like I said, they stay there for quite a while. So we're bringing our reinforcements up to strengthen our center. Or it's our right now, but eventually it'll be our center. As I said, this battle proliferates northward from St. Armand up towards St. Armand la Haye. So we're being flanked. Got to turn this unit around to face this threat. But these guys are getting shot in the rear by the units in the church. They're not going to stand there for long. And we're bringing another unit up to shoot into their flank. We got our guns going now, and as soon as we clear these battalions out of here, we'll bring the guns forward. And there they go. They were getting shot by the troops in the church and the troops in front of them. It was a bad spot. Off they go. And now we can flip the unit back to facing the other unit out there. So we definitely have the left much more under control now. Now we're going to see if we can start bringing the guns across the river. And as always, there's some passing issues. Got to find a spot where the leader can set up. Good enough. There we go. Good enough. Or I guess I want to keep them there until we really clear that last battalion up. Because you can see the battalion that was retreating is now coming around again. So what we're going to do is kick out some skirmishers to screen them, so then we can bring the guns up behind them. Like I said, you never want to bring guns up unless you're absolutely sure you can get them there without them coming in range of small arms fire. Because if they come in range of small arms fire, even if they're not fired upon, just in range of small arms fire, they'll turn around. And that's a pain in the butt if they get turned around. Then you have to kind of set up further back and then wait for an opportunity to come up again. So as long as I have the time here, let's maybe clean this line up a little bit. Connect more with the units in St. Armand, because that French division that should be attacking is not attacking. And they should be. That normally is how it goes. You know, you send the skirmishers forward, they turn the guns around, but the infantry keeps coming forward. In this instance, they haven't done that. They've just stood there. So now a French unit has wandered into the canister range of this battery back here, and they do not like it one bit. And they decide, nope, back across the river we go. So we've sent 2 units packing now, and now it's probably getting to the point where it's safe enough to bring the guns forward. Still haven't brought that other battery forward, but the other French division is not really giving me a reason to rush myself. They are just still hanging out back there. And I check on them once in a while just because I've never seen this before, where the entire division stops. You know, we have turned the guns around, but usually the infantry keeps coming forward, and they just haven't. And like I said, they played a little trick on me. They came forward much later than I expected. And I had already weakened this kind of position here to reinforce some of my units over here later on, and ended up kind of weakening my position. So here's my guns. They have made it over here, and we're just going to go ahead and unlimber them because we're going to need them sooner or later. Got my skirmishers out front, and we could bring this battery forward. There's no reason to keep them that far back. That battery will come in handy later as the French do move forward. Yeah, that was the wrong button, Rob. You meant to hit left flank, not oblique left. And I'm just kind of linking these troops all together with that unit that was already by St. Armand. So here come more French troops. And again, the castle is the great stopper. So I think this was one of our battalions in the church that has routed. But we have a bunch of small units by the church that we're just going to replace them with. So yeah, anytime you see a unit run out of the church, just got plenty of small units to just restock the church. I'm going to bring these skirmisher units forward to start shooting into the French flank. And we're going to bring the guns up right behind them. clear this left area out once and for all. And there we go, here come the guns. And we're going to have the skirmisher units go right in front of them. And once we get that set up, we will clear that left out. New French forces are entering the village of St. Armand. So again, I missed the pause button. Keep forgetting when those things come up. But anyway, more troops have been released to us. So yeah, basically anytime those courier messages come up, and you know, when you play the scenario, you can obviously read them. But I keep missing the pause button there. But we're going to bring some more troops up and keep proliferating our line northward, because each new French division comes from you know, more northward direction towards St. Armand la Haye. So just from having played the scenario so many times, you know, I know that. So another one of our units has run off. French unit surrendered, though. And as soon as we get these guns up here, we will clear out this entire left here. So that that second division is just still sitting there. So another unit retreating. Like I said, we're asking a lot of these guys. But so far we've held up the French for nearly an hour. 50 minutes we've held them up so far. And again, I'm just left flanking this brigade over just to connect with the just to take up the position that is being vacated, because I need to strengthen my left because some of my units are retreating. So I took one of my battalions over there, and I'm just sidestepping the rest of that brigade to kind of take up a new position further towards St. Armand. Yeah, so I'm bringing a nice big battalion over here to even the odds. Still sitting there. Yeah, so like I said, at various points throughout the scenario, courier messages are going to appear, and they're basically all saying the same thing: that the French are attacking with new forces, and more of your forces are released. And pretty much every courier message pretty much says the exact same thing. So even though I'm not catching them in time and pausing the video to read them, that's basically what every one of them says, is that the French are advancing towards new positions with new forces, and various new forces of yours are being released. And I have pre-planned positions for pretty much all the forces as they get released, just because I've played the scenario so many times, and I know how it's going to unfold. So finally our guns are coming up. Took them a while to get across the river, but once they set up here, they'll really clear out any remaining units on the left here. So we've only got we're down to 2 battalions inside the church, so let's get somebody else in there. And I just quickly put them right to this, rather than have them run around here and go in. I wanted them to come in from behind so that they don't come in range of the French. So that's why I re-clicked on the outside and then re-clicked them into the church. So our boys in the church have forced back one battalion. They're only engaging one other battalion right now. So that's pretty good. Here comes some more French units across the bridge. They disappeared because they just ran out of line of sight, that's all. They're still there, they're just not visible. They'll come back into vision momentarily. So we're getting our guns set up here. Alright, so now we've got 3 battalions inside the church. That's pretty good. And here comes another French battalion coming through the town to try and engage the church. And we're going to set up some flanking fire against them as they come through. Because there doesn't seem to be much going on our left at the moment, so we can probably get away with this. And I'm going to move this unit back to open up the field of fire for all of the guns. You can see there's 2 guns right here that are not unlimbered because this unit is blocking their line of sight. So we're going to get them out of there to open up the field of fire for the entire battery. Yes, I'm very concerned with having neat lines. It's what I do when I have nothing better to do. Is I just kind of dress the lines and make them look all nice. Because right now I'm very confused as to why this 2nd French Division has not yet gotten themselves into action and basically allowed 2 skirmisher groups to completely stall their advance. And they're basically letting me set up my defense for free. But in the end, they end up sitting there for so long that I start to think that they're not going to come forward at all, and I end up weakening that defense, and it turns out they are going to come forward. So okay, this French unit here has got themselves in quite a pickle. They are being shot at by the men in the church in the back. They're being shot in the flank by these guys, and they're being shot in the front by these guys. Plus now some of these guns are starting to pour canister into them. So you guys have gotten yourself into about the worst spot you could get yourselves into right here. You're getting shot literally on every side but this one. And I mean the canister is hitting them kind of on that side. So in the rear, in the flank, and we're going to even point these guys at them. It's just not a fun spot for these guys to be in. So they are not going to stand there for long. Yeah, let's get my supply wagon and make sure these guns are topped off with canister. Then we'll head over to these guns, refuel them. These guys haven't fired at all yet, so no big deal. And another one of my regiments is coming forward, and we're just proliferating the line northward. And they're a little too far to the left, so we're just going to move them over a little bit. Again with the passing. Got to find a spot the leader can actually go to. There we go. Sometimes that's annoying, trying to find a spot the leader can actually go to. So you just randomly have to click spots until you get something close to what you want to go to. And that's just some of the pathing issues in this game. So now we got 2 battalions up here. And all of these guys are in a really bad spot because they're getting shot at by the guys in the church, by these guys, by these guys. And we're actually going to pull these guys back just to open up the field of fire for the guns to really put a wallop on these guys. we want to kind of put every gun right into them. There we go. There's the sound of canister fire. Yeah, they want to pull back. That's never going to be a good spot, fellas. You can't bypass the church like that. You're going to get shot in the butt. That's why it's so important to always keep men in the church, because they can't move past it. Otherwise, they're going to be getting shot in the rear by the men inside the church. You're in an all-around facing when you're in a fortified position like that. So you can't just walk past the church and be like, hey, we're just going to ignore you. It doesn't work that way. You're going to get shot in the rear. All right, so we got another regiment. We'll start bringing them up. And I'm going to place them on this road. Again, I'm just preparing for a later part in the battle when there's a French division out here, and when they come forward, we're going to be ready to greet them. I pretty much want to set it up so they're on the road. So that's just, I'm trying to get the position right here. And that's close enough. We can fine tune it once they get here. So, all right, we got our little line set up here. The French still haven't advanced with their 2nd Division. All we've engaged so far is Lafol's division. Again, just check on your church once in a while. Make sure your units are in there. You always want to keep at least 2 or 3 battalions or skirmisher units in there to keep up a good rate of fire from the church. All right, so now we'll just link these lines up a little bit more. Make it a little cleaner. Now, if the French division out there was advancing, I would put skirmisher units in front of all these guys in the woods here. But they haven't shown any sign of movement yet, so I just don't see the need to do it right now. But eventually I will. So here comes our other brigade, or the regiment that we're going to set up on the road there behind the guns. None of those guns ever get released to us. So we have really mopped up this French right over here, huh? Not much left of Lafol's division. I don't see a couple of battalions. So we really delayed them, made them pay for every step, and once they finally did get in range of the church, they were pretty tuckered out and didn't have much left to them. So we've got 3,200 points. About half of what we need for a major victory, but we're just about an hour into the scenario. So we've taken 1,000 casualties, but we've inflicted 2,300 casualties. So all in all, we're doing pretty good so far. And now with these guns on our far left here, it's going to be very, very difficult for the French to try and outflank the town now. That's a pretty solid setup right there. and that division is still sitting out there. And I'm just like, what? I'm scrolling out here going, what are you guys doing? Come forward. That's a huge division that they could be committing right now. But at this point now, I've got my defenses set up. You know, I would kick out skirmisher units from this whole line and really make a pain in the butt of myself if those units came forward. So we're going to kick out some more skirmisher units. And just start setting up the skirmisher line just in case sooner or later they come forward. And I'm going to put them in the woods because they obviously get a defensive terrain bonus from the woods. There you go, in the woods. And you'll notice whenever you change terrain that this area around the compass will tell you what terrain you're in. See, it says woods and shows you a little picture of woods. So that's how you know if you're actually occupying defensive terrain. So now the second objective has activated here. But it turns out you need 1,000 men to actually occupy it, and we don't have that many. There's only about 450 men in that unit. So no problem. The other regiment is coming up, and we will soon have enough men in range. And here I'm just checking on the objective to see what it was, and it's 1,000 men within a radius of 200 yards. 100 points for every 2 minutes you hold it. And that's largely what this battle becomes, is just scrolling back and forth between St. Armand and St. Armand la Haye, and just keeping an eye on things. So as soon as this regiment comes into range, we will occupy the objective and set up our defense. And even these regiments back here will eventually get released to us. Not quite yet, but they will. I don't think I even used the rearmost regiment. I only think I used the two of them, the front two of them. See what's going on over at St. Armand here. Still have the church. And a French unit has wandered into close range, and that was the canister sound we heard. It was our guns putting it to them. Ouch, that hurts. That doesn't take much to send them running. Couple of shots of canister, and off they go. So as long as that other division is not advancing, I am going to use some of these skirmishers I kick out to try and make more of a pain in the butt of myself around St. Armand here. If we need to, we can always kick out more. These guys that have deployed here, they already don't like their facing. And we now have the objective. Good. Let's finish kicking out our skirmishers. And I'm just setting up a skirmisher line in front of my main lines. So that if and when the French decide to move forward, they have to first tangle with the skirmishers before tangling with the line infantry. Just a way to stall them and make them pay. All right, so here comes our next front, our next attack here, and this is St. Armand la Haye. So as you can see, once again, the French are leading with their artillery, and we will go out to meet them and again turn them around. Pretty much abuse this trick on pretty much every French division that comes forward because they lead with their artillery. So we send skirmishers out to turn them around and basically take them out of the battle and make them kind of a non-factor. So our guns back here have opened up, and our regiment is getting into position, and our skirmishers will buy them the time to do so, because they're going to turn these guns around and then once again force the division to go online and deploy much further back than they want to. And in the meantime, we'll be setting up a hell of a defense back here. So there go the guns. Off they go. Turning around. So we're going to use these skirmishers to again force the infantry to deploy into line and kind of start tangling with us way further out than they would like to. And meanwhile, we'll be setting up our defense back here. And this small little 200-man unit, we're going to put them in front of the artillery battery in skirmish formation. And then later, we'll actually move them forward into the woods to help support the skirmishers that are already out there as they begin to fall back. So you can see the guns have all turned around, and the units are starting to deploy into line. So let's check out St. Armand again, make sure everything is kosher over here. Seems like it. So our skirmisher unit has actually advanced, and we're going to go and stick them in the woods again. We've kind of retaken this position now, and that was a good position for us before in those woods, so we'll take it up again. And it looks like I'm going to stick this whole little battalion into the church just to reinforce it some more. It's not under as heavy fire as it was before, so putting a bunch of units in there now will only serve to fortify it even further. So we've done supplying that battery, so let's bring the supply wagon over to this battery and resupply them. So as you can see, the guns have turned around and the entire division has gone online, and it's time to start pulling our troops back. As the French advance, we need to pull back. Our job here is to delay the French advance while we set up our defense over here. Alrighty. So we're going to start setting up our defense over here. And any of you who have watched the Grog Toolbar Demystified series, especially the final episode, will quickly realize what it is I'm setting up here. So I'm moving the skirmisher, or the group that I had deployed in skirmish formation, this Jaeger battalion, and I'm moving them forward into the woods to kind of link up with these skirmishers as they retreat to strengthen the skirmish line and stall these French even further. Look how we stopped up this entire division, sent the guns running, forced the infantry to go online. Yeah, we have to pull back, but I mean, look how far away they are, and they, you know, had to engage us so much further out away from the objective, and it's giving us time to set up this defense here. And like I said, you guys will quickly realize what this is. I demonstrated it in episode 4 of the Grog Toolbar. And I did say in later scenarios, you would be seeing this formation a lot more often. This is the fortress. This is the infantry version of it that I'm setting up. We're going to put 2 line units on either side of the guns, and then we're going to put skirmisher units in front of the guns and in front of the line units. And this will be a devastating position for the French to try and attack. Nope, you're not going to get to charge the skirmish unit. I see you. Just retreat them. So we're pulling our skirmishers back, and the infantry will again have to organize itself before moving forward, and we'll have them link up with our Jaeger battalion in the woods here. Now, you'll notice I'm not paying attention to anything going on at St. Armand right now, and that's because I'm just confident in the situation over there. I've got the guns over, the left is really, really covered well, and we've pretty much destroyed Lafo's division at this point. And the only thing I really have to keep an eye on is whether that 2nd division is going to ever start advancing. Because it's very weird to see the 1st division advance, the 2nd division stay where they are, and now the 3rd division is advancing. Usually it goes 1st division advance, 2nd division, then 3rd, and so forth. But in this instance, the French held the 2nd division for back, and chose to advance with the 3rd division, which is something I've never seen them do. So I highly doubt you will see this happen in any of your playthroughs, because normally they come through, this one first, then this one, and then the one we're seeing advance on St. Armand la Haye right now. So yeah, not much going on over here. We're in pretty good shape. We got 4,200 points. And now we're occupying this objective as well. So now our point total will start to rise a lot more rapidly because we're holding 2 objectives. All right, so let's finish getting this fortress set up. We have the gun screens. Now we're going to screen the line infantry. And we'll put 1 battalion in front of the right, and then 1 battalion, or 1 skirmish unit in front of the right battalion, and then 1 skirmisher unit in front of the left battalion. Pretty much exactly how I demonstrated in the Grog Toolbar Demystified final episode. And we're kicking our skirmisher units off from the rear unit so that the line units here are not having their strength diminished. This unit back here is the one we're using to split off all the skirmishers. And like I said, you'll be seeing this formation a lot more often as we continue with the core series, because at this point now we just have a lot more troops to play with. So I'm pulling these skirmisher units back, just keeping the distance between the French and my skirmishers. They're still buying time for us. And we have pretty much are ready to meet them. We have the fortress fully set up now. The guns are screened, and when those French come into range, God help them. So as you can see now, we have lost the objective because we've moved too many troops out of range of it. So my choice now is to either bring another unit from somewhere else to take up the place, or weaken the fortress. I'm not going to weaken the fortress, so I'm just going to find some other unit that's not engaged and kind of move them over. And these guys on the right here, they look to be the ones. So we're just going to use road movement and kind of march them over here, and to put our number of troops over 1,000 men and get this objective going again. And there they go. We just hit road movement and they will march there. And I'm going to double quick them because I'm not going to have them in combat, so their fatigue doesn't really matter. I just need them there to put us over 1,000 men, so we have the objective. So look how far back these French guns are. Absolutely useless back there. They will not do anything to us. And we've got this division deployed and, you know, kind of stopped up here. And we have the fortress ready to meet them. And things have really quieted down over here at St. Armand. There's no French anywhere nearby. At this point, Lafol's division has been pretty much wiped out. There's a couple of battalions that are just sitting back here, kind of right here, and there's another one right here. But we've pretty much crushed them at this point. Let's resupply this battery. And our skirmisher units are continuing to fall back, no problem. They're doing fine work in delaying this French division and giving us the time we need to set up the fortress, which, as I've said, is virtually impregnable to the AI, and it doesn't fail us here either. So again, our skirmishers are pulling back, giving ground, but that's exactly what they're supposed to do. So now we've got this Jaeger battalion in skirmish formation in the woods. All right, let's see if I can pause in time. All right, look at that, I paused in time. It says, General von Ziethen, a new French division is taking the locations of St. Armand la Haye and St. Armand la Haye. From here, they can hit the right flank of our forces fighting in St. Armand. Advance with the 2nd Brigade to block and repulse them. Okay, that means the brigade that I showed you all the way in the back, they've now been released to us, and we will start bringing them forward. And again, the officers are all on take charge. Of course, the one time I actually left it up long enough to give myself time to read it. However, I don't think we ever really used those troops that get released to us for over here. Like I said, we have the fortress set up. It's virtually impregnable, so we're not going to need those troops over here. But as I said, the French kind of caught me off guard by waiting to advance the 2nd Division over here. And, you know, that's where we end up sending these troops, because to deal with some of the issues on the right here by St. Armand la Haye, I weakened my center a little bit to kind of handle some of these French units that are going to come through the orchard over here, or these hedgerows, kind of right in here. They're going to come through, and I'm not really set up to meet anything over there because I moved that battalion over here to recapture the objective. So we're going to have to do some shifting of forces, and I weakened my center to tighten this area up over here. And then later on are going to need these troops coming forward here to kind of retake up that center position. And they pay big dividends later on. But like I said, I don't think I even used this rear regiment. I just don't think we ended up needing them. So as you can see now, the battle has really started to get on a much bigger scale here. We're now fighting all the way from St. Armand to St. Armand la Haye. And here come the French. Our skirmisher units have fallen back, but they are about to run squarely into the fortress. However, you can see they're coming forward over here too. So we need to quickly shift some units, and this is what I was talking about. I weakened my center to strengthen my right over here, as these half the division here, the whole brigade, is actually coming through on this side away from the fortress. And I don't really have anything set up to meet them here, so I'm going to quickly rush some skirmishers out to stall them while I set up some lines, and I'm making sure that that 2nd Division over there is still staying put, because I realize what I'm doing. I'm weakening my center to strengthen my right over here. But everything over here, please, they don't have a chance up against the fortress. So we got this one little skirmisher battalion out here that are trying to hold up the French advancing here while we get our troops set up to meet them, and they do a damn fine job. So you can see a couple of battalions now in the woods trying to come onto the fortress, and they really make no headway against it. Like I said, it's virtually impregnable to the AI. And I'm going to actually start shifting some of these skirmishers out to see if we can actually hit them in the flank, as the canister is just pouring into these guys. So I'm not worried about what's going on over here, but we got to get this going. Alright, so these guys have bought us some precious time here by stopping these guys. So we got to get our skirmisher units into position to better support them. So let's move them over here to screen this unit. And this whole area, I'm not worried about. We got the fortress set up here. We got units inside that building. This is a rock of Gibraltar right here. I'm not worried about that at all. This, however, I needed to pull this together hastily. But those skirmishers that were in front of us did a bang-up job of stopping the French in their tracks there. Oh, so look at this. Lafol's division has gotten rested up, and here they come again. But fools, look what you're heading into. 8 guns loaded with canister. This is not going to amount to much. As you can see, we're already bombing away on them. These guys are still sitting pretty. I'm happy about that, because right now my center is a little flimsy. So we've stopped these guys up. These guys right here are heroes, because they held this whole brigade up while we got our skirmishers and our lines deployed. So now I'm moving this line forward so that they can engage them. I'm moving the skirmishers forward to support this skirmisher unit, because I'm sure they're getting tired. They got pushed back from here, and now they're holding over there. The fortress, of course, doesn't really need much monitoring. They're just crushing everything out here. Just, yeah, that's pretty much what the fortress is all about. Just that sound. The sound of canister going off. So we pulled this together pretty quick, and this is working out well. We've got them all kind of bottled up in here. We've got skirmishers out front. We got the men in the fort. We're doing all right. But as I said, there's a nice gap in my center now from where I pulled these units from. You can see that's a pretty decent sized gap. But right now I'm not worried about it, because as far as I know, that 2nd French division is not moving. So as you can see, the canister fire is just totally repulsing all of this. I knew that wouldn't hold up. So let's see, what do we got? We got 5,600 points, so we are very, very close to enough for a major victory at this point. We need 6,000 points. Got about a half hour left in the scenario. And the fortress is holding up just fine. So we got our the skirmisher battalion that was in the woods has fallen back here, and I'm just going to move them up to actually strengthen the skirmisher line in front of the guns. So even full battalions in skirmisher formation like this, because this isn't a skirmish unit, this is an actual battalion, it's just a small one that I'm using in skirmish formation. But as long as you're in skirmish formation, it doesn't block the line of sight of the guns, even if it's not a skirmish unit. And look at this. Oh boy. We got to shift our forces, because that 2nd division is moving forward now. So we're going to need these forces, instead of coming forward to St. Armand la Haye, we're going to bring them and try and shore up our center with them. Because St. Armand la Haye is pretty secure at this point with the fortress. But our center has a big gap in it, and now that 2nd Division is moving forward. We still got those 2 skirmisher units in the hedgerows there, so they're going to stall them a little bit. But definitely time to reinforce our center here. So there we go. We're moving Huchtenbruck's regiment into position. And that 2nd Division is now on the move. And that is going to cause us some very tense moments. Because not only do they attack my center, but they make another go at St. Armand over here. And we don't have much over here anymore. You know, a lot of our skirmisher units have routed. We've got a couple of little units left. And we have to make sure to always keep the church stocked with skirmishers. You know, so the pickings are pretty slim in this area right now. And we can't really shift our guns, although we will, but we can't until we really finally clear out the last of Lafo's division. And we're holding up pretty good here. Not bad. As you can see over here, the fortress is just demolishing this whole brigade. And we've got 600 points from this objective. And there's only a couple, it looks like most of the battalions from that brigade have routed. There's only 2 battalions there now, so the fortress made quick work of them. But look at this monstrosity coming forward right here. This just caught me completely by surprise that they started moving at this point. Normally it's this division, and then this division, but they kind of threw me for a little loop, and we're gonna pull both these regiments over and send them over towards St. Armand, because we're really weak over there right now, and the position at St. Armand la Haye is just fine, because nothing is going to break through that fortress. But my center is weak. My left is even pretty weak right now, because just we've used up so much of it in repulsing Lafo's division. So I'm going to bring a regiment up in column by division, kind of right behind the river. And I'm just going to keep them there for now, because I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do with it. This is actually, yeah, this is 2 divisions. This is the division that was over here and the division that was over here. So yeah, it's actually the 1st division, the 2nd division, and the 1st division is Lafo's division, and then the 2nd and 3rd divisions were hung up back there, and the 4th division is this one here. So they really attacked kind of out of order from what I'm used to in this scenario, and it threw me for a loop. But don't worry, I handle it. So our skirmishers stalled them, but not for too long. They got overrun pretty quickly. They are coming forward with a purpose right now. Luckily, the 3rd division is still back there. Only the 2nd division is advancing. And thank God for that. So I do not have much to work with over here. And there are a lot of French coming. And my regiments are still pretty far away, so we're going to have to really stall them with what we got up there for these guys to get into position. I mean, we're not totally weak. We have, 3 battalions set up. They're all pretty big battalions, 600-700 men. We got skirmishers in front of them, so we're set up to meet the enemy. But this is just a whole division, a gigantic force. So we're gonna have to get a little creative. Luckily, most of LaFoll's division appears subdued at this point, and maybe we can start moving our guns into position to support us. So we're still holding just fine over here at St. Armand la Haye. I think the fortress has pretty much driven that entire brigade off. Yep. Just the officers there. Yep. So, yeah, the power of the fortress, gentlemen. Don't even really need to pay attention to it, and it just does its thing. So again, they're pushing back the last of our skirmishers. And I'm just looking for any traces of life in what's left of the LaFoll's division, but it seems like they are done for. So it's going to be some hairy moments coming up here as this division engages us. And as they approach, I'm just going to run to the fridge real quick so we can get back to the second half of this. Be right back, fellas. All right, I am back. So we've pretty much cleared the area around St. Armand la Haye of the enemy. There's not much left over there. The fortress has pretty much handled that whole schlemiel. But very soon, that 2nd Division is going to give us some tense moments in the fight for St. Armand. So I'm just refusing the fortress a little bit just to meet this column that's coming on. Again, I'm really not worried. They're going to start eating canister from a very big battery. All right, so here come the French. Charging into our skirmishers. There they go. So it's up to our what's left of our skirmishers and our line units. You can see we have lost the objective because the French have come within 200 yards of it. It's not hard to do. So yeah, we have lost the St. Armand objective. However, we still have the other one. So we're still earning points from St. Armand la Haye objective. So I'm not too concerned that we don't have the objective anymore. So these French are in serious mode right now. They are coming forward with meaning. We have some guns up on the hill here, though, that they're putting canister into them. But we're actually going to get in a melee right here. But we win it because this unit is so big. It's 600-something men, and that French unit is definitely not that big. And they just got hit with some canister. They got fired on by those skirmishers, and all of that served to kind of wear down their fatigue and their strength in the number of men they had in their units. But these look at this, these French, they're just crashing into St. Armand, and we are really not set up to meet this. So I'm going to start stripping my extreme left to temporarily hold down this situation. because the French are just pouring through the town at this point. I'm going to get some skirmishers up here. This is pretty tense right here. They're just pouring in through the town in all directions, and we don't have a lot to meet them. You can see I've already turned the guns, so anybody that comes into this area, you know, they're gonna get hit with it. Now, if we can hold and repulse this attack, we can get the objective back. We just have to clear the French away from the objective and get them past kind of 200 yards of it. So here comes some more French skirmishers now, and we're going to have to turn our skirmishers to face them. Which, you know, luckily for us, we've cleared this all out now. And the French are really coming through. Here they come. Now, these guys here, this isn't a good position for them, because remember, we still have the church. So when they set up in line here, they're still going to be being fired on in the rear by the occupants of the church. So even though it looks bad that they're penetrating this far into St. Armand, it's not terrible, because they're in a bad spot. Because as long as that church is occupied, we have a 360-degree field of fire around it. So this is not really a good spot for them. Plus, I've just opened the way for the guns to pour into them. And I'm actually going to send the skirmishers forward to pour even more fire into them. And there goes the canister fire. That's what we want to see. However, it's real hairy over here. So again, not even paying attention. The fortress has handled everything over there. What I should have done is set up a fortress in here. But, you know, like I said, they kind of threw me for a loop. Luckily, these French are actually close enough that this battery back here, which is on a rise, it's on a hill, it's able to shoot over the troops down in the road here, is actually hitting some French with some canister fire. So we've got some skirmisher units that have previously retreated that are back in business, and we're going to bring them up, start to screen our line units. This whole area over here looks pretty damn stable now. So in a kind of a rare turnout for this scenario, because as I said, normally this scenario starts at St. Armand and then proliferates northward and dies down at St. Armand. But in like I said, this is a very different turnout than what I usually get. The French have kind of renewed their assault on St. Armand here, and really kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't really expecting this to happen, because it really never does. You know, so things are a little hairy. Luckily, we've turned our guns. We've kind of got this whole area in here. If the French penetrate undercover with the guns. But they definitely caught me off guard here. This is not something they usually do. So we've got some more units now moving in on the church. And these units in the church now, they've been in there for quite a while. You know, they're getting tired. So we have 8,500 points, well clear of a major victory. As you can see, our reinforcements are now starting to arrive, and very shortly we will stabilize the situation and get these French out of here. And I'm just replacing a skirmisher unit that routed here. The one that was in front of this battalion routed, so just replace it with a new one. Nothing going on over here. The fortress completely demolished everything, as it always does. So we shall head back to St. Armand here, where the hairiness is going on. So we have some close contact fighting here. We have a small French column coming right in here. And I think we're going to get into another melee here. And let's see how these guys do. It looks like they're getting the best of it. 170 points. They're going up. I think these French are going to withdraw. Yep. They are backing off. And they surrendered. Yes. Love it when that happens. So we have a good French force, good-sized French force right in here, really pressuring us. Got some skirmishers back in business here. We should bring these guys over here and kind of close up the skirmisher line a little bit. So some of them are starting to pull back. That 3rd Division is still sitting out there, though. I don't think they come forward, though. Ah, our reinforcements, and not a moment too soon. So another skirmisher unit has broken and run. See if we can move this skirmisher unit out on the flank of these battalions over here. See if we can get them to break, because these units here are getting pressured right now. See a lot of men in the left flank of this unit have fallen. Still don't have the objective. The French are way too close. They're contesting it. But we are well ahead of the amount of points we need for a major victory, so I'm really not that concerned about it. What I don't want to see here is a total collapse of my line. Which is why I keep putting these skirmisher units in front of the line units. So I'd rather have the skirmisher unit. If somebody's going to run, I'd rather have it be the skirmisher units. And here they go. Recall. Get out of here. So now we can shoot at these guys while they're reforming and put a wallop on them. And maybe that'll get them to break. And I see an opportunity here. But I have to refill the church. You can see a unit routing out of the church. So instead of using the skirmisher unit for what I was going to use it for, I have to send them into the church. Because a lot of these units in the church right now are very, very tired. Alright, so our reinforcements in our center are up. We just need to kind of straighten that line out a little bit. And here come our reserves. Now basically what I put them there for is if any of these units over here break, I'm just going to replace them with those units from the reserve. And I'm just trying to re-solidify this line here. Not much out here anymore. We've pretty much repulsed all of this. Just a skirmisher unit. No big deal. That attack did not amount to much. They ran headlong into the fortress and paid for it. I'm just going to advance this regiment just so that, you know, they're really, really close by at hand if we need them. Right now our units are doing all right. They're holding pretty good. But, alright, we got 3 units in the church. We're still doing alright. Now let's try what I wanted to try before. Which was to see if we can get some flank fire going on these guys. But it turns out this is not really open, so this doesn't work. But instead I send them around here and fire into this unit's flank. And that sends these guys packing. What I wanted to do was just put them right here and kind of shoot right through the buildings into their flank. But they don't engage, so it doesn't really work. Alright, our center has been re-strengthened now. Not quite as hairy as it was. We've got reserves nearby if we need them. I'm just checking out all these units, making sure they're doing good, and they are. They're actually doing really good. Yep, none of these batteries ever get released to us. Sometimes they do. I've definitely used these batteries in this scenario, but in this case they didn't get released to us. Alright, so we have a unit collapsing. This is why I brought up this regiment right behind them, so that we can quickly replace them with fresh units. This is a big unit, pretty decent troops. They're level 6 regular. We're going to put them into line, and you know, there's going to be a big line unit firing into these French now. And I'm going to quickly flip these guys, because now these guys are kind of firing into their flank. And the situation has died down a little bit over here. There's still some French units over here, but they're not really pressing forward. And then you can see this is not working. They're not firing. So instead, I'm going to move them up here and see if we can get them to shoot into the flank. Shoot into, in this instance, shoot into their rear. So another skirmisher unit, turning tail, and like I said, rather the skirmisher units than full line units. Alright, so now we're in position here. Let's see what happens. And now they are engaged and firing into the rear of this French unit, and they quickly decide they want none of that. No, thank you. We will hit the bricks. And with them gone, these guys don't last long. Because now they're being fired on in the flank. Yep, there they go. So any unit that's kind of trying to approach our right is just being instantly repulsed. There's too many men over there. 700 points for that battery. Way to go, guys. That's what I like to see. And it's a supply wagon, but not under our command. I'm looking for other supply wagons, but it seems like I only have one. These guys are running back to Berlin. Yep, I don't have control over that supply wagon either. Just the one I have over by the guns here. So, alright. I'm going to send them all the way over to St. Armand la Haye and resupply these guns in the fortress here, because they've been firing for quite a while. They're probably low on ammo. So the French are still making an effort to shoot out the church. At least 2 battalions over there. We've still got some troops coming forward over here, so it ain't over. It ain't over yet. But we now have the objective again. After we got those French units out of there with that rear attack, we have retaken the objective. However, more French are moving in, and they may be able to contest it again. And again, just looking for a place to place the officer because I'm going to reposition the guns yet again. $1,000 points just for this battery. These guys have put in work today. And another unit streaming out of the church. No. Routed. So we have to resupply the church with skirmishers. There's only 1 battalion in there right now. We do not want all our units to rout out of the church, because then the French can move in and occupy it, and then it's not fun. The church is kind of the linchpin of our defense over here. It's very hard for the French to get around. They can't just bypass it because they'll be getting shot in the rear from it. So it's very important that we hold on to the church, even more so than holding on to the objective. That church is pretty much the key to our position holding. So again, here comes some more French coming forward. We're going to screen this unit with some skirmishers. See if we can hold off yet another threat. Alright, we got two skirmisher units inside the church now. That's okay, as long as they don't rout. And another French unit trying to push in through St. Armand. We're going to move back up and get out of the way so the guns can do their work on them. And they're getting close. I'm going to move von Ziesen here a little further back behind the lines because we don't want to get ourselves killed. That wouldn't be good. So we're at 9,700 points. Well ahead of what we need for a major victory. We did pretty good here, even though they caught me napping in the center. Luckily, I was able to actually see them coming as soon as they started moving, and we were able to hold until we could get our reserves up. And now the guns are doing their cruel work. So we ended up only really having to use 1 battalion from our reserves. Our line held well. That's a good line right there now. Ain't nobody getting through that. So if the French had moved more in coordination with the attack on St. Armand la Haye, they might have been able to do something. But they kind of moved after the fortress had already broken up the main part of that attack, and I was able to shift forces that I normally would send over to St. Armand la Haye and send them back towards St. Armand instead. So yeah, nobody's getting through this now. And we'll just walk the supply wagon behind the caissons, resupply these guys. They're in no danger of being engaged anymore, though. I think we pretty much routed that entire division. Just remember when you guys play the scenario that these guns start off kind of all the way over here, and don't forget they're there. You want to, kind of as soon as you can or as early as you can, grab them and set them up over here. To set up the fortress over here, and that will completely repulse that attack. I definitely went to the refrigerator here. That's why the camera's not moving. This is definitely a fridge run. And I'm back. So we have repulsed a lot of this attack now. We have the objective once again. Again, one of our units routed out of the church. We got to kick off another skirmisher group and get them into the church. And as these, units get more and more tired, they tend to rout faster out of the church. So more towards the end of the scenario, if you're still engaged at this point, you want to keep more of an eye on it. As you can see, the church has been hit and it's on fire. It's not a comfortable spot to be in at the moment. All those French guns way in the back there have been shelling it, for 2 hours now. All right, so we got our 2 units back in the church. And we were able to pretty much repulse that massive French attack. There were some close moments there where they really got in close. They contested the objective for a while. They definitely made a good showing of it. I'm going to see if I can bring another Jaeger unit and get them into the church. Jaeger units seem to do well inside these fortifications, where the skirmishers seem like they want to rout a little more quickly. So still a little shooting going on over here, but that's just one battalion. Another one coming forward, though, over here. So they're still trying to come forward. So let's actually advance our big unit here to meet them. They've been doing really good. They've only taken 21 casualties. They've inflicted 190 something. So these guys, nope, they don't want none. And another unit runs out of the church. Like I said, these skirmisher units, they don't seem to do as well in the fortifications as like Jaeger units do. They seem to stay there a lot longer. So we're gonna kick another unit, kick the skirmish unit, and put them into the church. And we better get a move at it. I think they're gonna rout before they get in there. Yeah, they're retreating. Alright, but here come the Jaegers. Let's get them into the church. 200-man Jaeger unit. That should be pretty good. If we can get them in there before that last skirmisher unit in their routes. And these guys aren't routed, they're just falling back. They did pretty well while they were in there, though. Really nothing going on the right. It was completely repulsed. But we're done resupplying the guns. So let's head back to this battery. Alright, our Jaegers are in the church. That should be enough to hold till the end of the scenario. Only got 2.5 more minutes left. And we'll bring in another big line unit here. 790 men. And just set up a line here. Nobody's going through that. Not at this point. So some more units coming forward, but I think it's a little too late. We only got 2 minutes left. I don't think it's going to be enough for them to really do anything. 10,000 points. So our Prussian First Corps did really well in holding back the enemy. We had a lot of advantage in that, a lot of this is hindsight 2020 because I played the scenario so many times. I know where all the attacks are coming from and where the best positions to set up a defense are and whatnot. The French did switch it up here though. Like I said, normally they just attack one division after the other, going from south to north, and it's very predictable. And in this instance, they actually didn't. They attacked with the 1st Division, didn't attack with the 2nd or 3rd Division, attacked with the 4th Division at St. Armand la Haye, and then attacked with the 2nd Division back again at St. Armand. And they never committed their 3rd Division. What they should have done is launch that attack with the 2nd and 3rd Division, both of them. That definitely would have broken through, and we would have had to use our reserves and push them back across the river. So the French are trying to set themselves up over here to get something done, but they're kind of trapped in the the building mystery maze. Where can we set up our line amongst all these buildings? There goes another unit. So yeah, once we got the Jaegers in there, it was pretty good. So the other skirmish unit routed, but the Jaegers have the church, and we only have 10 seconds left. So that's pretty much it. We have held St. Armand and St. Armand la Haye. 10,706 points. Not bad at all. We took nearly 3,000 casualties, but we inflicted nearly 8,000 casualties. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the scenario. In the beginning, you just want to be a real pest, and use your skirmishers to really make the French pay for kind of every foot, every step that they make as they progress, and it really gives you the time you need to set up your defense of St. Armand. Again, the church will be your linchpin, and just keep, as each regiment gets released to you, just proliferate your line northwards along the road. Remember, anytime that happens, that also means another French division is going to come moving forward. Send your skirmishers way out in front to turn the artillery around. That's such an important part of this, is using your skirmisher units to turn the French artillery around. Every single advance the French make initially, every division they advance with, they lead with their artillery, which means you can just rush out there, turn them around, and then force the entire division to go online and deploy much further out than they want to. And that really gives you the time to stall them, to run down the clock, to waste time, and to, build up your defenses between St. Armand and St. Armand la Haye. Don't forget about that 8-gun artillery battery way out on the right there. Bring them over by St. Armand. And it's a great place to set up the fortress, because you have a lot of time, if you send those skirmisher units forward, to stall their advance. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this one, guys. So until next time, take it easy.